Hey friends, welcome to the Canyon Pathways podcast, where we invite you to live like a son and lead like a father. Canyon Pathways is a global community of men on the journey from the striving of servanthood to the freedom of sonship as we traverse the canyon that is midlife leadership. My name is Noel Bouché, and I'm the founder and part of the leadership team for this venture, and I'll be your guide throughout this podcast as we explore and discover what it means to live like a son so we can lead like a compassionate father. Friends, welcome to this episode where we're looking at the word receive and the concept of receiving. We're going to dig into our field note on this word receive here in a bit, but I want to encourage you to come back. Our next episode is going to be a conversation episode. Luke Smith, our community director, is going to be talking to Michael Perrin about what that word means to him as he lives like a son and leads like a father. So come back for that convo. Going to be an incredible one in terms of insights and wisdom that will be shared with all of us. So let's look at this word receive. You know, receiving is hard for many of us as human beings, but as men, and especially now in midlife leadership, this stage of life that we're in, we've been striving, building, accruing, proving ourselves for so long. Maybe we'll accept things like recognition and applause as a reward after we've worked and earned. That's a little bit easier. We've still earned that thing that we're receiving because then we have the satisfaction of earning. We'll earn all day long. But to freely receive something that I have not earned, that I have not proven myself regarding, to receive it with joy, with gratitude, is hard for us, if not impossible for some of us at this stage. Why is that? Why is it so hard to receive? Why is it so hard to receive in midlife leadership? I think it's both nature and nurture. We're created to receive. I'll come back to that point here a little bit. We were created to receive from the Creator, from the environment around us, including the people that were in that environment. But since mortality, since that tragic fall in the garden, everything was turned on its head. Instead of receiving freely everything, every need, every desire, receiving all satisfaction, pleasure, everything that's necessary and abundant, the world was cursed. And now what do we have to do? We do have to strive. We have to fight against the elements to create something that will emerge out of the earth, out of our labors, through the sweat that we pour out. But we've also been nurtured that way. Many of us, you might say, we have been expected to work hard in a way that earns. We were taught this. We were parented this way. We were coached this way that we have to prove to the world around us that we're worthy of attainment and the attention that it brings. We have to prove and earn that position. And, at this stage of life, perhaps we've experienced that. We've experienced already the accomplishment, the acquisition, the acceptance into certain circles that has arisen out of our hard work. They're the things that we have earned. But the danger is that at a certain point, we find it hard and then harder and harder, up to perhaps being impossible for us to freely receive with gratitude and joy. And that's a tragic thing because we were created to receive. So we'll come back to that here in just a little bit. But first, let's get to the field note where we dive a little bit deeper into this word receive. Receive. What a child doesn't receive, he can seldom later give. P.D. James. I can hardly claim to be a sci-fi aficionado. I've only seen a few Star Trek episodes, and I haven't read even one Isaac Asimov novel. But I like a good near-future flick with just enough technological advancement to stretch the imagination while not losing relatability to our contemporary lives. And if the storyline includes a well-written exploration of the father-child relationship, all the better. Ad Astra is one of those films. As the protagonist traverses the solar system to find his father, long presumed to be dead,
He wrestles with the wounds of being orphaned as a boy by his dad's self-centered quest, and the relational problems in adulthood those unhealed wounds precipitated. Frequent AI-conducted psychological evaluations are the plot device through which we glimpse the depths of the isolation this fatherless son experiences. To pass an evaluation before a mission, he states coldly, "I will not rely on anyone or anything. I will not be vulnerable." As the journey to the outer heliosphere takes a turn into the depths of his inner life, he more passionately confides to the computer, "When I look at my anger and I push it aside, all I see is hurt. I just see pain. I think it keeps me walled off from relationships." It is a walling off that many of us can relate to. When we've been hurt, when we've been wounded through abuse or abandonment, physically or psychologically, the natural response is to erect a wall, to cordon off an area of our mind or heart so that it cannot be further traumatized. Like any barrier, the effect is stymied connection, stultified relationship, because real, robust relationships are rooted in receiving. Like a dam prevents the riverbed from receiving waters from upstream, or a jammer disrupts the reception of radio signals, the walls we erect in our relationships prevent us from receiving the very things we crave: heartfelt attention, honest affection, the holy allure of someone reaching out and filling us with precisely what we need. We're often fearful that strings are attached, just as they were when we were first hurt, way back when. But there's another circuit breaker to healthy receiving other than fear, one that may be the deadliest of all, as it ushered in death at the first: pride. Receiving is difficult for humans, and for us midlife men in particular, because it undermines one of our paramount aspirations: autonomous achievement and the earnings it engenders. Pride and sense of satisfaction stemming from our solitary successes precludes receiving, unless it is the reception of accolades after the accomplishment. It is this impulse that lured and hooked our first forebears. Though their immortality was rooted in a continual receiving of everything they needed from an ever-giving physical environment and ever-present spiritual presence, the fruit of the one tree, delightful to the eyes and desirable to make one wise and self-sufficient, was too much to resist. Thus, taking overtook receiving as our default, a taking that sometimes masquerades as giving in our mortal mission to justify ourselves. But why is receiving so central to relationship? And why is it harder to receive the older we grow? Let's look to the word itself. The English word receive comes to us from Old French, and it meant originally to pick up, to welcome, to accept. Interestingly, it came into use specifically in relation to the acceptance of the sacrament. Prior to that, its origin can be traced to Latin, where it meant to regain, to recover, to take in, to admit. When we don't receive from others, we're denying them admission into our life, into our heart. Perhaps more importantly, we're denying admission to the Spirit of the Father and all of the recovery and relational fruits He brings with Him. It is when we receive that we show ourselves to be a son of God, because while servants and hired hands earn, sons and heirs receive. The entire history of the Father's purpose proclaims to us the centrality of receiving, from the receiving of the first breath to the dead bones in our life receiving the redeeming second breath, from the receiving of the Spirit in an inner room to the receiving of the Son at the front door. We are called to rest from the earning and receive the relational intimacy for which we're so desperately yearning. Yet, everything in this fallen age tends to push and pull against this. Whether we've been the prodigal younger sibling who feels only worthy of being called a servant, or the older sibling wearily, angrily striving like a servant to earn the fatted calf, we naturally encounter barriers to this relational receiving. But when we at last receive the invitation to the table and receive the nearness and nourishment it provides, we supernaturally experience the embrace of a father longing to be with his sons and to reveal them to the world. And it's out of that receiving that we will give, and be amazed at how our meager means are turned into abundance that will bless everyone around us. It's then, like the recently returned and healed son in the final scene of the film, will say with hopeful, heartfelt humility, "I will rely on those closest to me. I will share their burdens as they share mine. I will live and love. Submit. May we also. Truly, I tell you, whoever does not receive the kingdom of God like a little child will never enter into it. Mark 10:15. Hope you enjoyed that field note on receive and took something away from that the Spirit of the Father was highlighting for you. A little bit of a sci-fi to sonship journey in that essay. Fun one for me to pen. But as I reflect back on it, three things that jumped out at me as really key takeaways, and I'll offer these to you, trusting that the Spirit of the Father was revealing something particular to your heart as well. But first is that real, robust, redemptive relationships are rooted in receiving. When we receive, it is the essence of relationship, is to receive. And certainly it was that way in the beginning. We were created, we were formed with both a physical and a spiritual essence that was made to receive. We have systems in the body made to receive that first breath from the Creator, made to receive the food that just emerged and was provided out of the environment, made to receive the beauty of the surroundings through the senses and to explore and receive revelation and data from around us. But as we said earlier, death entered, and we moved from immortality to mortality, and receiving is now no longer the norm. It is not. Striving and earning and proving and fighting and scraping is the norm of this age of the world. But when we live as sons, we are not of this world. And I think that's what Jesus was getting at, as he was saying, you are no longer servants. I call you friends. The world will not love you. It loves its own. But you are a son. Receive this love that you might give it to others. That is the essence of this relationship that's at the heart of sonship, of living like a son of God, is to receive, freely receive, so that we can freely give. But in this environment, of course, we bump up against obstacles to that continuously, daily, moment by moment. We're wounded by the things around us. We're hurt by words and absence and actions or betrayal. And those injuries, our response to them is to put up walls. It's like any wounded animal. When we're wounded, we will protect it. We'll wall things off so that we don't feel the pain anymore. Of course, in the middle of all that is pride, as the field note pointed out. We're going to be wounded, and then in our pride, how are we going to respond to that? How are we going to overcome the woundedness? What healing pathway are we going to pursue? It's going to be proving, earning, striving, overcoming, showing that I am worthy. I can overcome what you did to me. I will win. And that is the way of the world. But as a son, what we're doing is bringing heaven to earth. That phrase has been jumping out at me. That is essentially what we do when we live as a son. We are bringing one age of the world, a redeemed one, a perfect one, a kingdom. We're bringing that into this age of the world, just in small pockets, just a light amidst the darkness, but real healing, real gifting, real impact, really visible, dramatically visible to the world around us when we walk as a son, when we receive. But it's very, very hard when we haven't received that. When we didn't receive that growing up, when we haven't received it in relationships that have been central to our lives. There's a quote by the author P.D. James that summed this up for me. What a child doesn't receive, he can seldom later give. And some of us are in that place. We're still in a place where we didn't receive it from a father. We didn't receive it in our family of origin. We didn't receive the things that we do want to give. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, empowerment, encouragement, wisdom, counsel, generosity. We want to, but it's hard because we didn't receive it. And now we have to realize that that's the case, that was part of our physical inheritance, perhaps emotionally. But as a son of God, I have to turn to the one who is the true source, and that's the Father, and turn to him to receive now what I didn't receive earlier, what I probably couldn't have as a mortal human being in bondage to sin and death, but now can when I look to this Father who is good. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy, said Jesus. May that be a true mark of our lives. Second takeaway was the word itself, to receive, from a Latin root, meaning to regain, to recover, to take in, to admit. Amazing discovery of a kind of string of concepts that the etymological history reveals to us. I see in it echoes of the 12 steps: to regain, to recover. What does it take to recover? It takes receiving. It takes acceptance, taking in, admitting, to admit, not just to let in, but to let in the truth and let it flow out, to confess. That's what it takes to live fully as one who's healed, as one who's thriving, to be able to accept, receive, be recovered by a narrative that my Father is a good Father and he loves me as a beloved son. He's not a demanding taskmaster who is asking every day that I prove my fealty to him, that I perform and achieve these certain things for him. No, that I can look up and say, this is a Father who says, you are my beloved son. I am well pleased in you. You are a son among other sons, starting with the first son and receiving. Thirdly, is the mark of a son and heir. I think this is a big takeaway for me. This is actually what we are showing to the world when we live as a son. It's that we can receive. We receive and inherit from a good Father. No longer need to earn. No longer need to strive like a servant or hired hand. We show ourselves to be the Son of God when we freely receive. And out of that receiving, joyfully, gratefully, can give to others the things that we're receiving: the forgiveness, the vision, the hope, the joy, the counsel, the wisdom, the ideas, the finances, the resources, the time, the attention. When we freely receive that to those who are so desperate to receive from us. Third takeaway for me is this concept that receiving is the mark of a son and heir, earning the mark of a servant and hired hand. When we receive, not earn, not strive, not seek to accomplish and prove and demonstrate out of our own labor that we're worthy. When we simply receive, we show ourselves to be the Son of God. We see that in Luke 15, in the two sons, that the younger prodigal son didn't want to receive, didn't want to wait to receive, did not feel like a beloved son, didn't feel like an heir, but rather wanted to take. Said, give you my inheritance now. And took it and ran off. And out of that led to disaster. And yet there's this older son out in the field all those many years, striving, working, holding it together, doing what's right in people's eyes, doing the opposite of what his brother demonstrated to the world, working, keeping, holding it together, white-knuckling it, earning the whole while, saying, someday this will all be mine if I can prove myself, if I can prove that I'm not like that wasteful, wanton younger brother. And yet, over the years, all the accomplishment, all the service, all the energy led to anger that came out of a deep, deep exhaustion of proving his character to the world. Why? Because his identity was as a servant. He was earning. Wasn't as an heir who was receiving. And when that opportunity came to celebrate, and the father came out and said, I love you, my son. Come in and celebrate. Your brother is home. He said, no. You kidding me? You kidding me? You haven't given me one thing. Look at what I've earned, and you haven't given me one thing. I can't come in. I can't celebrate. I can't give forgiveness. I can't receive back joyfully the one who was once dead to us. And it's a ultimately a great assessment tool for us. This just short character sketch that Jesus gives us in the parable of this older sibling. We can use it almost as a mirror as we hold it up to ourselves. Can I celebrate others joyfully? Can I receive things that I haven't earned? Or is it hard for me? Am I resentful of the things that I haven't yet acquired? Or things that I think I am rightly due? Do I doubt this father figure, his timing, his judgment, his wherewithal, his fairness? Or can I receive? Can I come in and be present? Can I come in and give freely the things that I have received freely? Sonship, inheritance, promises, love, covering, vision, purpose, passion. It is a remarkable parable. And at the end, the lingering question, what is unanswered, is whether this son can turn to his father and enter into a celebration of inheritance, or whether he'll stay in the field, angry, embittered, turning perhaps to another father, the father of lies, who would say, you are justified in your embitterment and in your rejection of receiving. It is something that faces all of us every day in this life, in this journey from servanthood to sonship. And I'll leave you with Romans 8:15, which I think not only embodies truth, but also embedded in it is a choice. For you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption as sons, by whom we cry, Abba, Father. There are 3 takeaways from our field note, and I'll leave you with 3 reflection questions. Are you finding it difficult to receive from others in this season? Is it hard to believe that the Father truly desires to freely give to you and to see you inherit, not earn? How might it be easier to receive if you accept that you are a son and heir and beloved, not a servant or a hired hand who is simply contracted with and tolerated? Friends, I hope you're taking away something that is touching your heart and renewing your mind from this episode in just the way that you need it in this season. And again, be sure to catch out the next episode. We'll hear Luke Smith and Michael Perrin go even deeper into what it means to receive as a son, as it's been experienced in their journeys. Check out the show notes for links, as well as a PDF with discussion questions if you'd like to use this episode for personal reflection or in small group meetings. Subscribe so you catch all of our episodes as we develop a language of sonship through this podcast. Thanks to the team at Maroon Harpoon for producing this episode, and to our donors who make this venture possible. And as always, thank you for being a part of the Canyon Pathways community as we together live like sons and lead like fathers.